All right. Welcome, Kathy and me, as we are the two people on the screen for this Saturday session, the first of two on June 7th, 2025. And this is, of course, the Islands of Sanity course that we put together, Islands of Sanity in a Mad World. And this is, I believe, month 10 in June of 2025. In what is originally planned to be a year-long course going all the way through the end of September of 2025. And my sense is that that will be packaged as a recordings only offering for people to start up anytime and continue through anytime. But I think it will become a regular fixture on Saturdays, perhaps staying with these first and third Saturdays of each month. Um, there's just something that's irreplaceable about spending time together, even if it is on screen together. There's just nothing quite like it. And Kathy, as you and I were just talking before starting up the recorder, um, I've just bumped into a piece released by the podcaster and educator Nate Hagens, who's been hyper producing his many podcast episodes and interviews for the past few years. And as you probably recall, Kathy, and anybody who's watching, I'm just noticing my dog is making some noise, so I just got a little distracted there. Um, with Nate putting out this relatively brief piece, it's about 20 minutes long total. We're going to play the first half of this brief video from Nate in this first hour. And then we're going to, in the second hour and a half, if we go that far, in the second session, we'll do, of course, the second half of his 10 qualities that could change the world. And I like his kind of sparkiness, his spunkiness to, assert, yeah, these are qualities of presence and relatedness and connection that could make a massive difference. And I've been looking for some kind of shared language and self-assessment that we could all share in preparation for each of the sessions that we get together for each month. So this will be the first opportunity for us to do that. And for those of you watching on the recording, we're also going to be posting a kind of a worksheet that you can download each month if you'd like. If you are not doing something like a journal, if you're doing a journal, then what better way to keep track of your progress through a monthly self-assessment process like this than to do that in your journal. So that's the number one, recommendation from over here is, oh my goodness, I can't imagine a more important time in human history to be doing a journal. This is a time to keep track of the details of what's working, what's not, what matters most to each of us, and in our heart of hearts, and what we can do about it, and what we apparently can't do about it. Yeah, these are times like no others. So I wasn't going to do much of a check-in if there were a number of us on the screen today, but I would be happy to take a minute or two for each of us to check in, Kathy, because it's another one of those kind of soul-based elements that makes it far richer when we can be connected with each other and to check in and just let each other know what's been happening for us, what's been heavy on your heart, what's been inspiring for you. So if you wouldn't mind checking in and sharing a little bit about how you're doing and since we've last seen each other.
Well, it's almost just I I am a psychotherapist and I'm just working part-time telemental health, and I've my clients are very anxious, and all of them, and I get anxious too, and so but thankfully, due to getting to meet with a consultant, which I did yesterday. She calms me down and helps me, you know. I this mo I'm new to the your Zoom, uh and I'm very curious about philosophy around collapse, and I really like I've attended one of your shows a few weeks ago, and I got paired with Richard Lowenthal,
Mm.
and I subscribe. I get the Medium emails, so I pulled him up and read everything that he's written. I really like what he's doing. I think he's excellent. He certainly has a grasp on things, and it's just that my life is I've got to find some way to come to grips with this past election, which was shocking, unbelievable. That I just and then what's happened since since about January. So it's just I don't watch the news anymore. I have to stay away from um before I go to bed, which is probably not a good idea. I'll go on Blue Sky and kind of check in, and I'm subscribed to the New York Times and Washington Post and the Atlantic, and I'll just check in, and it's like one day you feel kind of like, okay, well, maybe we're going to turn things around or we can survive this, and then the next day I'm just want to move to Canada. So that's where I am. I mean, I need support. It, I don't think I've been this depressed and anxious and concerned about the country ever. So, and I just want to, I want to understand more. I find myself reading a lot of history and reading various substacks that kind of take you through how this happened, and the long buildup of people plotting and scheming to get where we are. So anyway, it's I'm just a curious person, and I'd like to learn,
Yeah.
and I just, this is where I am. I'm looking forward to being with like-minded people and just talking about ways that we can hold each other up and, form a community and get support,
Yeah.
talk about things.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for checking in. And so I'll just take my couple of minutes to do the same. I've been at this for 10 years now, this being uh, offering support and resources and practices for the collapse aware and collapse acceptant communities, and which started out at pretty close to zero in terms of actual people engaged 10 years ago. Um, And now, unfortunately, it's a growing population, and I'm with you. These are times like no other in human history, certainly in, at scale, because I know that there have been influxes and occurrences of fascist dictatorships and so on showing up and doing their worst for some period of time. Yes, that's all true, but the stakes are global now. It's
Hmm.
not just one country at a time. Every choice, every turning point turns the entire planet. And the scale of energetic, in addition to the physical or the kinetic violence that is behind every inch of that fascist presence, and really has been all along in the American diaspora. But we've just convinced ourselves that we are always the good guys, and everything we're doing around the world is to protect democracy and to do good and so on. And I think we're starting to, in addition to coming to the realization of what we've created in terms of the space in which this fascist government is thriving
Hmm.
and fully supported by perhaps a majority of the U.S. I don't know. Um, but I am most concerned about the level of violence, and again, energetic as well as physical and kinetic. And I won't take the time to describe what I mean by energetic violence, but it is kind of reflects my way of scanning the world. And I think many of us actually scan the world in an energetic level, in addition to what we see on the news and what you physically can see and talk about. Uh, but perhaps we just don't have a shared language. We don't know that we and others are kind of picking up in the ethers. You have our spidey sense, if you will,
Hmm.
of what's going on at every level in this world. And I have a great concern about that. This is the real deal, and there are very, very powerful players who are pulling the strings right now behind Donald Trump. Donald Trump is really just the unfortunate idiot in front of it all. And he has his own things that he adds to the mess, but there's some very, very calculating and intentional and I would use the word evil, to
And can you say more about that? The who you see behind him? Just
well, I've done a series of podcast episodes that could be helpful for yourself and anybody else who has a question about my perspective or what I'm doing my best to offer in terms of seeing that, what I call the dark alliance behind the Trump 2.0 presidency. First and foremost is the Heritage Foundation. It's a conservative
the
think tank that is put together by the Christian nationalist or Christo-fascist group, and who's been at this for decades. They have been playing this long game since, some would say the 50s. And certainly with every decade that passed, their very quiet but potent infiltration into every level of government, especially in Washington, D.C., for all these decades. And now, really they have gone from behind the curtain and very, very subtly playing in the shadows. They have now fully come out, and I would say that they have won the long game. They have absolutely won it at every level. And look at Project 2025 is their way of saying, here you go. This is what we've been working on, and now it's installed and fully functional and up and running in Trump 2.0. So that's the one of the four four groups of many groups that have been assembled by the Heritage Foundation to be that presence behind that alliance behind Project 2025. The others are, uh, I'm sure, will be no surprise to you. The broligarchs, or the big AI money and Silicon Valley money. And we saw like the Mount Rushmore that was behind Trump being inaugurated, the billionaires who are sitting there all lined up. And theirs is a remarkable story as well, not quite as long in the past, but certainly just as long in terms of their future agenda as the Christian nationalists. And so I did a four-part series to introduce folks to this Christo-fascist presence in the Heritage Foundation folks. And then I put together, it looks like three, but it might end up being a bit more than that, episodes about the Broligarchs and what they're up to, including their own version of a quasi-spiritual, quasi-religious dictum that they are falling in behind. Uh, it's it's terrifying. I in one of the episodes, I talk with an author who's written extensively about the Christo-fascists, Carolyn Baker, and we were talking about how similar this looks to aspects of The Handmaid's Tale from
Yep.
Margaret Atwood. And that's one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen on television ever. So anyway, those are two of the groups that are focused in this kind of course within a course here in the Islands of Sanity in a Mad World course. There's the place in our online community space where it's all of our coursework is lined up. It's like a menu. You can just choose it. So you can click on the Islands of Sanity course material and click on it, and it opens up. And month by month through this year or more of course that we're in the middle of, just between months 9 and 10 is this special focus on the where did fascism come from in the USA? Like, why is it here now? Where did it come from? And that's where these links to the special focus episodes that I'm talking about of the Poetry of Predicament podcast, which is a YouTube channel. But you don't have to go to YouTube. You can see them all on YouTube. But this is all kind of neatly laid out in a little menu. So it's like a course within that course. So it's a special focus on the roots of fascism and how we got here. I'll just quickly mention the other two groups that are part of this special focus series. So we got the Christo-fascists, then we've got the Broligarchs, then we've got the what I call the old timer uh, business as usual corporatist kind of influencers, if you will, out of which has come the deep state and out of which has come the overwhelming domination of the global business environment, commercial environment, industrialist or extractivist environment. And these are the all the corporations and all the executives that we've all heard about, and they have rarely or never really copped to the fact that the CIA goes and does their bidding in countries around the world to have everybody toe the line so that American interests will be primary no matter what. And they, for instance, are the ones who made sure that the IPCC and the COP meetings that we've all been hearing about for 30 years now would have absolutely no impact whatsoever on climate change, on the massive, uh, existentially threatening damage that has happened through that um, through the continued extraction of and use of fossil fuels.
Mhm.
And the level of existential threat from each of these three groups is something that I'll just underscore briefly. I know that this is going on, and thank you for very much for your question. But it is an important element of this work, and that it really just came on like a freight train, as you well described in your check-in. Since the beginning of this year, we have no choice but to now shift gears and really get serious at a level that has not been present. We've been able to kind of lullaby ourselves. Well, I guess everything's happening. Somebody's taking care of it somewhere. And now it's not such a good idea to allow ourselves to be casual like that. So anyway, that's the third group, is that old time business as usual, corporatist, extractionist domination of global markets that has been pretty functional up till now. And they show some pretty severe signs of not doing so well sometime pretty soon. But undoubtedly, they will continue as long as they can, especially since they have the world's largest military to help them out. The last group that I'll mention that I have done some special focus on is what I would call the financialization and commodification of everything in the world. So the global financial wizards in the investment firms as large as BlackRock and others in that of that ilk, uh, they have been using AI for quite some time to maximize the efficiency and power of investment tools to commodify and financialize everything, to profit from everything and every single person and every job that they have in every conceivable way, to profit off of everything on this planet. So those are some pretty heavy hitters. There are others. They're much smaller, and even though they might be violent, like the various white nationalist groups and so on, that are clearly a threat of their own and not to be ignored. But I just wanted to stay with the biggest conceivable elements. And again, thank you for asking, and I hope that hasn't just bored you silly or
No, I mean it's a sort of we have a nebulous it's nice to have somebody, listed out and then, know what we're up against, So yeah, I sort of knew this, but I, didn't know it. I needed it, you know, listed out. Thank you. That was very, very good. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember I was in book selling. Oh, good. I got somebody else. I
Hmm.
was a bookstore manager when I got out of college for about 10 years. And I remember seeing a lot of, it was back in the 70s actually, and there really was starting, in the 70s, stuff coming out that, pretty clairvoyant stuff that predicted some of this. And I remember a book called The Seven Sisters, when it came in, I thought it was about the women's colleges in the Northeast, but no, it was about the oil companies. And that was I kind of how I got started with the like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, Bev.
Hi, Dean.
Great. Well, good to see you. And just to give you a tiny recap of where Kathy and I have been in this past half hour as we've started up this first of two sessions today. We both just checked in a bit, and then
Okay.
in the end of my checking in, we shifted thanks to a question from Kathy about some special focus about where did the fascism come from? How did it get birthed in such grand form
Wow. Yeah.
recently in the USA? And so we've just been talking about a special focus series of podcast episodes that I produced, and I'm still in the middle of. I've still got a few more to come.
Wow. I
Uh,
would like to listen to those for sure.
Okay, well, the piece that I'd like just to repeat for you, because I think it would help you if you want to watch any of these, is
Okay.
uh, we've got the course material for this Islands of Sanity in a Mad World course.
Yes.
It's like a little menu on our online community space. And I'm hoping that you and other folks who will be watching this recording will be able to track along as I'm saying these things. And I'll be putting up screenshots of what I'm talking about when I put out this recording. And basically, this special focus series about fascism here is like a course within that Islands of Sanity course. So anybody who goes to the Islands of Sanity course material and looks at the month by month little menu offerings between month 9 and month 10, there's this special focus about the roots of fascism.
Okay.
And so you'll be able to just open it up and see all of them laid out in really clean, easy to see and easy to click on fashion.
Okay. That's great.
So you don't have to dig around on the Poetry of Predicament podcast YouTube channel space, which is kind of confusing to me anyway.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. Welcome.
Cool.
I'm just gonna go straight into now a brief introduction to this Nate Hagen's podcast episode from a couple days ago. And it's one that's relatively short, and it's 10 qualities that we could possibly embody, or we could choose to take on ourselves that could change the future. That's the way he talks about it, though. That's the way he lists it. So I'm just going to click on it right now. And I'm going to share screen and I'm going to show you his little 10 qualities that could change the future list. And then I'm going to play the first half of that 10 qualities video from Nate Hagen's. It's about 10 minutes long. So
Okay.
first, let me just show you this thing that I'm talking about, this list. And so again, Bev and Kathy, what I've been wanting to do is find a way that we could share a language and we could check in with each other in an easy, compact way that is really tells us something important about how we're doing. And we each will have our own things that responses that we formulate or that we check in with. But these 10 qualities that Nate Hagens is offering, I think they are a good start. And as you'll find out in the second session today, as we go through the last five of the qualities, I'm going to offer some suggestions, and I'm really hoping that you will also come up with some suggestions for other other qualities or other aspects of your human experience that you would like to see added. Mr. Nate Hagens. And he's going to give us the first half of his 10 qualities that could change the future.
Last week, we had a video of the superorganism in 7 minutes, which was actually the superorganism in like 9.5 minutes. But near the end of it, I alluded to what comes after the economic superorganism in the human historical and future trajectory. And I used the word mitochondria of the cells of what might come next. The economic superorganism period of human history, where cheap fossil energy coupled with abundant global credit and globalization and collaboration is nearing its end in the not too distant future. Some new social organism will replace it. We don't know what. Mitochondria are the power centers of biological cells. Tiny organelles that convert nutrients into usable energy, keeping the organism and life adaptive and alive. In a similar way, the internal human traits and skills offered in this short video, and others, I just came up with this on the fly, could be the mitochondria of a future cultural system for humans. Each small, distributed, largely invisible, but absolutely essential. They could be the metabolic engines of resilience, regeneration, and a new coherence of how we relate to each other and to the natural world. I want to explore that a little bit under the cultural materialism framework of Marvin Harris, who looked at lots of historical cultures and found that they had three things in common. There was a pyramid. There was the superstructure, which was our ideas and our beliefs and our values, on top of the social structure, he called the structure, which was our economic system, our laws, our regulations, our institutions. And all that was on a foundation of infrastructure, which was our energy, our economy, our environment. And he said it was that core foundational infrastructure that was the most important thing for cultures changing. What he didn't talk about is the inner worlds of the humans alive at the time. I think he kind of subsumed those into the beliefs and values. But if you view this pyramid in our current 2025 global human predicament, it is highly relevant what the sea of humanity outside this pyramid expresses, feels, experiences in their own minds, like how skilled, resilient, able are we as humans to adapt and engage with the coming challenges. And so I've come up with a short list of traits that speculatively, I don't know the answers here, the traits that might comprise the mitochondria of individuals around the world engaging with the human predicament. So in no particular order, here are 10 traits of a different culture potentially that engages not only after the superorganism splinters, but while it splinters and before, right now. So first, which would be number 0 actually, is self-care. Because before we engage with the world, we have to take care of our physical and mental well-being, of you, the human being, the person, first. That means adequate sleep, nutrition, rest, exercise, all those things. And this is not self-indulgence. It is the baseline requirement for resilience in a fraying world. Regeneration, learning, creativity arise only when the parasympathetic nervous system is active. So self-care in these times is not a luxury. It's actually a neurobiological strategy. And so if we do nothing else, I think paying attention to self-care is critical, because only when we sleep well, eat decently, move often, and feel safe can we become agents of change. A dysregulated human body cannot sustain a new story. So if that's number 0, then number 1 is grounding. A grounded person is tethered, not just to place, but to their body, their breath, their emotional center. And in a storm of too much information and polarization and disorientation, groundedness is the ability to stay in that parasympathetic zone, calm, present, and able to hold space for others. You may have noticed from the start of this podcast a few years ago that I am more grounded. I'm certainly not fully grounded, but through a lot of help from others and a lot of personal work on meditation and time in nature and trying to find balance, I'm more grounded than I used to be in any case. Because being grounded is an inner ballast of sanity in these crazy times. And ultimately, a grounded human becomes an attractor for safety and truth. And in turbulent times, groundedness is sanity. Next is post-tragic mindset. We're perhaps the only species that can grieve in the abstract. I do it all the time. Ecosystems, cultures, future generations of ours and other species. We don't just grieve in the moment, we can grieve in the abstract. But unresolved grief becomes unhealthy in our bodies. It's not metabolized. It results in cynicism or nihilism. And I believe it was Mark Gaffney or Zach Stein, I can't remember who coined the phrase post-tragic. And real briefly, pre-tragic is when you're just going about your life, seeing the world and everything looks fine because you're unaware of all the crap under the surface. Tragic is you're becoming aware of the meta crisis and all the things. And post-tragic is after metabolizing it, understanding what's there and still rolling up your sleeves and playing a role. So the post-tragic human integrates grief as some sort of a daily rhythm, and it's like composting emotional energy into a more productive state. And studies do show that grief rituals enhance individual and collective resilience and meaning making. We're going to have to probably repeatedly process grief in the world ahead and attain a zone of acceptance. But that zone of acceptance then leads to potential action and engagement. So post-tragic as a category of the cultural mitochondria. Category number 3 is networked. Biological intelligence often emerges from decentralized nodes like mushrooms, mycelium, or beehives. And humans evolved similarly. We are social animals, and our cognition is enhanced by being around others that we trust. So in a collapse or great simplification scenario, survival will not correlate too strongly with wealth, but with social capital and mutual aid. So finding the others is not just a feel-good phrase. It's actually distributed resilience for the times ahead. So this is about cultivating relationships, not just for strategy, but for meaning. So we need to find the others. And I'm hopeful that either now on this platform or in the future, we will be able to help people find the others that are thinking about and working on these things. Category number 4, related to the previous ones, but something different, is co-regulation. With others, you gain strength, vitality, purpose, and vagal co-regulation of your nervous system. Polyvagal theory, which I'm hoping to find an expert guest to talk about this because I've been discussing it with my craniosacral therapist. But polyvagal theory tells us that safety is not a thought. It's a feeling. And co-regulation in our bodies happens when we are seen, when we're heard, And when we are accompanied and respected, it's not just emotional, it's biological. Heart rate variability, the vagal tone, mirror neuron activity all improve in trust-based relationships, and groups and ultimately cultures that are built on co-regulation are going to outperform those that are based on competition, because trust scales. And this gets back to David Sloan Wilson's and E.O. Wilson's multi-level selection theory, where individuals, selfish individuals, outcompete altruistic individuals within groups, but that altruistic groups outcompete selfish groups. And it's along these lines, co-regulation.
Wow, thank you. That's the first half of Nate Hagen's 10 qualities that may just change not only our future, but perhaps our present in these challenging times. I forgot to suggest that you might want to have a notepad for some of his elaboration on the terms, because I know that they're unusual. For me, they're unusual. It does need some translation. So that's what the very few minutes that we have left here in this first session is to just start to untangle a little bit or clarify if you have any questions about some of the terms that Nate used. And then that's really what we'll spend our time doing in the second session is not only getting some clarity about what each of these 10 qualities means and how they might fit in your particular life circumstances, but also to really start to try them on for size. You know, like we can really get our toe in the water with feeling what these 10 qualities might, the impact that it might have if we were to take them on as a shared language. So I'm curious if Kathy or Bev, if either of you have anything, any reaction that you'd like to say. We've got about 5 minutes left in this session. So anything you'd like to
Okay.
briefly share?
I'm just arriving at the place where I'm going to have my procedures. So
Okay.
I'm going to have to say goodbye for now. Okay. Thank you, Dean.
Good to see you, Bev.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kathy. Bye
Yeah.
for now.
Take care.
Okay.
All right. Kathy, do you have anything that bubbles up for you after hearing Nate talk about this set of qualities?
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed, I guess I'm a list person, checklist person, but yeah, I like that. Um, Certainly agree with that. A lot of the tools and the skills that we certainly do with clients, who somebody's highly anxious, you work to get the system calm through grounding, and I really liked it. I lit up when he mentioned polyvagal theory because
Yeah.
I'm sort of new to that, but I can think of, Stephen Porges is the founder or the creator of the theory, and Deb Dana is excellent. I've been to workshops she's done, and then Ariel Schwartz and people like that. But yeah, once you study it, you understand that we can live in a sympathetic state, a highly anxious state, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, uh, but or collapsed state, depressed. But we all want to live in a vagal state, which is a calm state where we can.
Yeah.
Frontal cortex is online most of the time,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's why I'm here, as an experiencing living in a sympathetic state, and I don't like that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It seems I so appreciate your being here today and sparking the particular questions and threads that you have, particularly when we were talking about the fascism and
Yeah.
the intensity of the past few months is so far beyond anything that I think any of us have had to grapple with ever.
Overwhelming.
Yeah, and so it for me also it translates. You'll hear me elaborate in the next session how I there are some adaptations, some addenda that I'd like to throw into this, beautifully put together list from Nate. Um, because it's actually, he tends to understate things a bit. Um, Especially when it comes to stuff that's political or that has uh, basically a trauma element to it.
Yeah. Mm.
Bless his heart, it's just not his forte. And I'm hearing just by how you are speaking about what impressed you and what was starting to spark for you, that you do have those, just given your profession, uh, you have that capacity to explore that neighborhood, if you will, and as do I. And so I look forward to very much to our second session today when you and I can perhaps of course we're going to cover the other five elements and we'll briefly touch into each one. But for me, there's just really nothing more important right now than to go right to the core of how trauma shows up in our body and how might
Mm.
we untangle these intense knots that can occur as depression or as anxiety or as trauma in our systems, and what I was mentioning before about the energetic violence, because most of
Mhm.
us, thank God, aren't being hauled away by ICE to El Salvador. um, but the energetic violence
Yeah.
and so on is, I think, a very worthy conversation that can stand on top of the foundation that Nate's building for us here. So, anything before we check out and take a break for a little while and come back at 30 minutes past the hour?
Nope, I think yeah, we feels like we're on track. It feels good. I'm glad I showed up today.
All right, I'm glad you showed up too. So, same link when we come back at
Okay.
in 30 minutes time.
Be 1:30 my time. Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. So, look forward to seeing you then.
Okay. See ya.